President Ramaphosa says South Africa must put the risk of load shedding behind it once and for all by completing the reform of the country's energy system. Now, he says the country's energy supply is on a positive trajectory. Now, this is despite load shedding being reintroduced last weekend. Ramaphosa says government will unlock 940 billion rand to build and refurbish infrastructure in the next 3 years. He added that the just energy transition is gaining momentum. Now we are now joined by energy analyst Matthew Cruise to expand on this. Thank you so much for your time on the program. So President Ramaphosa says we must put load shedding behind us. How likely is this to happen, seeing that South Africans also came up to a very dark reminder that load shedding is still very well with us just this past weekend?
Great. Well, thank you for having me, and hello to your viewers. So I would agree with the President when he was saying that there's been positive trajectory in the energy sector. As we've seen now 300 plus days without load shedding, that was a reversal of what was taking place in 2022 and 2023. So yes, there has been positive steps that are being made. And in addition to that, I have seen also positive steps being made regarding the amendment to the Electricity Regulation Act, where it's facilitating the introduction of private players into the market and at the unbundling of Eskom. So we're going now towards a democratized energy sector, and that's a fancy way of saying there's going to be other players coming in and also contributing electricity to the grid. And so in terms of then load shedding, it will be a factor of how fast can the private players like Empower come on board and provide electricity to South Africa, relative then to also what's going on with the aging coal fleet at Eskom, where over time they decline in their ability to generate power. And so there'll be an interesting interplay where as there's new power coming online onto the grid, the old dirty coal power is coming offline. And that's also then aligned to the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan, where we're bringing down our coal power stations and then bringing on renewable energy onto the grid.
And Mr. Cruise, as we stay on the news of this positive trajectory that we're on, I think now all eyes will be on the Energy Minister, who's actually expected to give us a detailed plan in the coming weeks on how this will all be unfolding. But just how optimistic should we be about all of this?
So I'd say that we can have cautious optimism, and it will also remain to be seen. I think over the next 3 months, we'll get a good idea of where is Eskom, and to give some insight there. I've been taking a look at their electricity availability factor of their coal power stations, and I've seen that it's been consistently below 60%, unfortunately, where the target is 65%. And that really gives you an idea of the coal power stations are not actually providing the power that they're meant to be providing. There seems to be maintenance issues that are causing breakdowns and also delays in bringing units back online. So the coal power stations are not doing too well. And those coal power stations would typically provide power in the peak demand in the evenings and the mornings. And so we've been firing diesel over January to prevent load shedding. And that diesel use has a limitation on how much you can actually fire of it. You can't do it for longer than 5 days of constant firing of mitigating stage 2. So it is really a factor. It's a bit chaotic, and it's really difficult to really say if there's going to be load shedding or not, because it's a factor of the coal power station units coming offline due to catastrophic failures that are unpredictable, and then the ability that we have to fire diesel to then meet the evening and morning peak. So I'd say we might start seeing load shedding happening again in this quarter and next quarter. It'll depend on the state of the coal sector of the coal stations and our ability to fire diesel. And during the middle of the day, however, thankfully there's been a lot of solar that's been coming online, so we'll have power in the middle of the day for powering the businesses and the economy.
And Mr. Cruise, you just touched on some of those challenges that tend to put a damper on things, if you may, with those power stations breaking down, as well as the maintenance of some. And I guess the question on most South Africans now would be, how do we really get our house in order? How do we fix all of this?
Great. Yeah, so some of the nice kind of positive things that Ramaphosa spoke to during his address is that he mentioned this year they'll be building the building blocks of a competitive electricity market, and also within municipalities, ring fencing the energy that's happening with the electricity distribution within the municipality, and ring fencing the electricity market within each municipality. So that means that in terms of how things are going to go in terms of getting things in order, there's going to be companies like ours that will be providing empower municipalities 50 megawatt solar farms, and those will then be not going to Eskom, but actually to the local municipality. So municipalities are now being empowered to be able to not have to get electricity directly from Eskom alone. They can have competition coming on. And then for businesses and households that are wanting to future-proof themselves or make themselves not then be at the mercy of how this energy transition is going, it's recommended also to come to us and get solar for your business. Other companies also out there that are competent and good quality. But solar paired with battery is a great way to save money on electricity bills and also then become resilient to any grid outages that do happen. As we know, even though there's no load shedding, there's still this load reduction that happens almost across the half of Joburg consistently. So having those batteries in place to capture the solar energy, already the cost of electricity from solar systems is cheaper than Eskom. So I'd recommend take a look. I know previously it was a solution to load shedding, but now it's actually a solution to the costing, the electricity price increases that are continuously happening to get solar plus battery, and then it has the added benefit that if there is load shedding returning, then you're already mitigated from that load shedding impacting your house or your business.
And interestingly, you just brought up, a term that leads me straight into my next question now. You just spoke about how some of the municipalities also factor in all of this. And looking at all these processes as they're going to start unfolding now. I mean, the president spoke about developing a funding model for municipalities. I'm keen on finding out how will this work, seeing that most municipalities don't really have solid funding models when we still have so many problems in the mix.
Yes, so what he was talking to there was an aspect of the electricity revenue that is collected. So when homeowners and business owners pay their electricity to the municipality, that's been typically viewed as just revenue to the municipality and basically money coming in that can be used on anything. Whereas like the intention for the distribution network within the municipality and for the rights to distribute electricity and put a markup, typically 100% markup on the price of electricity that the municipality gets from Eskom to the consumer. Typically, that money is meant to be used for maintaining the distribution network and maintaining the substations that we have not been maintained over the last 10, 15 years. So there's an aspect of it being previously viewed as just money in, and now we can use the money on anything. We unfortunately have seen, and it's publicly available information, that the money is not really actually spent on renewing and updating and maintaining the distribution infrastructure. It's spent on other things. So we hear of wasteful and fruitless expenditure, and a lot of municipalities around the country unfortunately fail in terms of passing their audits. So now when Cyril talks about ring fencing, that talks to putting in smart meters to determine exactly what is the electricity that's being consumed at a business or home, and that money that's paid for that electricity going into a separate bank account that's then paid to Eskom, so that the municipality can actually not be in debt with Eskom, and then Eskom tell it to need to reduce its load. So there's going to be a ring fencing of the revenue that comes from electricity, and then the expenditure on electricity as well, which is publicly available information in terms of what is actually being spent on substations, on the distribution network, so that there can be accountability and transparency on the energy distribution network, and also the ability to provide electricity to the municipalities. So this is all happening at a time when, thankfully, it will enable then private players to come into the market, because at the moment it's difficult for private players to come into a municipality because they can't be guaranteed that they'll actually get paid. But if you have a ring fence situation like Cyril is talking to, that the GNU is putting together, it'll open up then the sector for private players to come in and provide cheaper than Eskom's power to the municipalities. And once again, that's where Empower is going to be playing going forward as well.
And I think you make an important point there on how the state of the nation can also be used as an accountability mechanism and not just as a wish list, as some analysts have put it out there. And Mr. Cruise, the just energy transition, will it be going ahead as planned? And just explain it to us in layman's, just exactly how will all of this unfold?
Great. So in layman's terms, the just energy transition plan was given to the world at COP27 2 years ago. It was laid out. This is how we're going to go from our coal-heavy, 80% of our electricity coming from coal power stations. We're going to transition to mostly renewable energy, so wind and solar in particular. This is the plan, this is the timelines, this is when we're going to be shutting down the coal power stations. So I'd say yes and no. In terms of the plan, yes, the plan is moving forward. So we've seen the Electricity Regulation Act being amended, enabling then private players to come in, for Eskom to be unbundled into separate generation, transmission of transmitting over thousands of kilometers, and distribution departments. Then transmission being able to interact with private generators, not just Eskom, to be able to provide power. In terms of then the regulations, they're being implemented. However, there's a no in terms of when coal power stations were going to come offline, because we made commitments to decarbonize our electricity sector, and we actually received $13 billion so far through the Just Energy Transition Investment Plan to decarbonize our nation and decarbonize our energy sector. However, the coal power stations that were meant to come offline by 2027, 2026, they are not going to be coming offline until 2030. And this is because in 2023, it was kind of acknowledged it doesn't make sense to shut down generating assets, even though it's cold and it's dirty, in the context of an energy crisis. So now it remains to be seen, as we bring new generation capacity online, we'll be able to see, okay, which power stations can we bring off when? And the plan is still being implemented. It's just been a delayed plan. But I still see, once again, overall, a positive trajectory in terms of where things are going towards a private participating energy sector where private players come and also provide electricity to the nation.
In the meantime, we keep that optimism going for brighter days ahead. Listen, thank you so much indeed for your insights. That's, of course, energy analyst Matthew Cruise joining us there